you ever wanted to play a 3D platformer built around couch co-op? Well, in the Adventures of Pete and Toby, you can do just that. It is going to be a two-player couch co-op 3D puzzle platformer collectathon. The game draws a lot of inspiration from these titles, but adds one key feature that none of these games contain, which is split-screen co-op. In this game, each player will choose one of the two playable characters based on the type of player they are. There's Pete, and there's Toby. So the game will be shot from a third-person perspective, and it'll be a split-screen game. As far as gameplay goes, the gameplay revolves around platforming, getting collectibles, defeating enemies, but most importantly, using both players to solve puzzles. As far as the actions go in the game, you'll have your standard actions such as run, jump, attack, and swim. However, there's a twist to these actions. Unlike most games, these actions will actually act differently depending on the character you choose. For instance, when it comes to swimming, Pete will only be able to swim on top of the water, while Toby can only dive under the water. There's also a couple other actions I added, such as the grab mechanic, which allows you to interact with physics-based objects, and there's a special move that each character has. So for Pete, he will be able to retract into his shell. While he's in his shell, he will be completely invulnerable to damage, but will be unable to move. But he will also turn into a physics object. And Toby has a slide ability, which allows him like a quick dash, and while he is sliding, he's completely immune to damage, and he can use it to slide down hills, knock down enemies, and clear large gaps. So each character works a little different. Being a co-op game, if one player dies, and there is no lives left, it will result in an immediate game over. However, lives can be found throughout the level, or a player can sacrifice some of the collectibles gathered for an extra life. However, if they do this, they will lose those collectibles, and they will have to go back to the level after they complete it to get those collectibles back. The goal is to get all the collectibles, which will unlock levels and allow you to progress further in the game. As far as antagonizing forces go, you have your regular enemies, projectile enemies, large enemies, and special enemies. Special enemies can only be killed by using physics objects. Lucky for you, one of the players happens to be a physics object. If Pete retracts into his shell and is kicked by Toby, these enemies can be dispatched pretty easily. However, they actually aren't dispatched so easily. After a set amount of time, these enemies will actually come back, and each time they come back, they become increasingly more aggressive. This forces the player to choose whether to engage these enemies right away, or wait until later to engage them. As far as development risks go, there is the scope, and I plan on mitigating this by using a form of spiral development, in which we will start with by using the hub world. After completing the hub world, we will move on to the levels, and from there we will polish the levels. So as far as the hub world I'm going for, I don't want an overly complicated hub world. I was thinking a hub world more along the lines of Spyro. If you ever played Spyro before, the hub worlds are fairly simple, but they do contain all the mechanics that you'd find in the levels throughout. So I was planning on doing something like this, and that's my game, The Adventures of Pete and Toby. Thanks for tuning in.